So Juan says, my post-prandial cortisol was at 18.5 at around midday in general. Is this normal? 18.5 at midday? If you're talking around noon, it might be a little bit too high. Can ashwaganda, I'm assuming you mean ashwaganda, not ashwanda, but ashwaganda, can that help? It's an adrenal adaptogenic herb. It can help bring cortisol down through competitive inhibition with cortisol. It doesn't actually lower your cortisol, but it competes with your cortisol, and it has less of a cortisol-like effect. That's what an adaptogen does, is it competes with the hormone, but generally doesn't have the same type of effect that the hormone does. So, possibly, I'd say the bigger reason why your cortisol might be high in the afternoon like that might be stress-related. So look at things that are stress-related first, because the big things that elevate cortisol, aside from stress, are blood sugar disruption, lack of sleep, too much emotional or environmental stress. This is a perfect time for that right now. Many of you really, really hard pressed with the pandemic issue going on, and but look at those things first before you start taking adaptogenic herbs to try to address cortisol elevations. Let's see, good ways to support the kidneys. Question coming in. Probably the best way to support your kidneys is to eat the right diet. One of the most damaging things to the kidneys, hands down, bar none, is sugar. So don't eat sugar. The kidneys are a filter, and their job is to filter. Their job is to basically to detoxify your blood and filter your blood. So the best thing that you can do to support your kidneys isn't to take different herbals. It's not to take different supplements. It's to eat really well and to maintain good exercise so that you keep your blood sugar well controlled. That is fundamentally the best thing that you can do. And avoid taking medications if you can. If they're not necessary, avoiding medications, especially meds that are metabolized by the kidneys. Let's see, I think I answered that question already. The best way to identify kidney disease. I gave you some lab tests that, again, you can ask your doctor to run for you. Is it dangerous to have low urine pH? If so, what is the solution? Is it dangerous? It's a sign of a problem, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily an emergency or a danger. The best thing to do if you've got an acidic pH in your urine is to change your diet. For most people, that acidic urine like that is caused as a result of high processed food or excessive sugar. So changing your diet would be the first thing that I would look at doing, and continue to monitor that pH. And if it doesn't change, and it's probably best that you get with your doctor and have some more advanced type of testing run to make sure you head off a problem. Let's see. Jean says, how can I help my body as I have neuropathy? No pain, but numbness and pins and needles. Thanks. A lot of causes, Jean, for neuropathy. First of all, is it upper extremity or lower extremity? Did you rule out, disc herniations or nerve entrapment problems? That can be a cause of neuropathy. You can have nutritional deficiencies that cause neuropathy. Probably the pins and needle neuropathy that you briefly described there is oftentimes pins and needles can be B vitamin deficiencies. I've seen neuropathies like that be caused by B12 deficiency, folate deficiency, B6 deficiency. So again, getting with a good doc who understands these types of things and having the right set of labs run so that you can isolate and identify whether you have any of those nutritional deficits that might be contributing to that neuropathy. Okay, so let's see. So somebody's asking me about my watch. What is it with the watch people? There's so many watch people in our audience that always want to know about my watch. It's an Omega. If you're interested, it's an Omega watch. How about fruits? How can someone avoid grains and fruits on a vegan diet and still ensure adequate nutrition? Well, that's a good one. So it's not about avoiding fruits. If you're trying to follow a vegan diet, first of all, I would say, is the diet right for you? And maybe it's a conscious decision that you're making over animal rights or animal advocacy. But for some people, it's not the right diet. For some, it is. So that would be the first question that I would want to get answered. The second is, can you eat fruit? Yes, you can. You don't have to not eat fruit on a vegan diet. You just have to be cautious about quantity. It does become a quantity issue. Too much fruit is too much glucose and fructose. Fructose has to be metabolized by your liver, and so it puts a lot of pressure on the liver, can elevate serum triglycerides, among other things. So it's not that you can't eat fruit. I would say, again, if you're trying to follow the no grain, no pain diet, it's about avoidance of grain predominantly, but not necessarily total avoidance of fruit. So don't think you need to avoid all fruit. Let's see, GN. Hello, Dr. Osborne. Does premature gray hair lead to kidney failure in the future? Yeah, so your classmate had gray hair when she was 14. Last few years, she was on dialysis. So I would imagine if she had gray hair when she was 14, it's not the gray hair that caused the kidney problem. It was the gray hair that was an external symptom that said there's probably something very seriously wrong with a 14-year-old who's got gray hair. As a side note, there's a B vitamin, vitamin B5, pantothenic acid or pantothenate. That's not an 8, that's a 5. Also known as the anti-graying factor. And what will happen in some people is they'll get what's called a flag sign, which is they'll get patches of gray hair, and that'll show up prematurely, or they'll just get gray hair prematurely. But B5 deficiency can cause that. You need B5 to properly regulate the adrenal glands, which sit just on top of the kidneys. So there was probably a lot more going on with your classmate than just graying of the hair. If somebody would, potentially have maybe looked at or investigated it earlier, it's possible that it could have gone very, very differently. It's hard for me to say. There's just not enough information there. But graying of the hair is not necessarily a symptom of kidney failure, if that answers your question. So Jan wants to know, so how do you heal kidneys? The way you heal kidneys is you take away the things that damage them. Your body heals the kidneys. How do you heal a cut? How do you heal a scrape when you get a cut or a scrape? You don't. Your body does, if your body's healthy. So again, you all heard me emphasize this over and over and over again. You can use supplements, many people do, but if you try to use supplements in lieu of a good diet and a lifestyle change, you're going to be sorely disappointed in the outcome, and you're not going to heal anything. You're just going to be band-aiding, or what I call green medicine, which is when you try to chemically manipulate the symptoms that you're experiencing by taking something natural instead of taking a drug. It doesn't fix the problem. You always want to ask the question, why are the kidneys damaged? That's how you heal the kidneys. You take away what's damaging them and make sure you're providing for enough nutrition, the right nutrition, so that your kidneys have the capacity to heal. Your body will do the rest. Okay. Let's see. So Brenda says, while toward the end of chemo for colon cancer, had swelling of the hands, feet called hand and foot syndrome, never realized the kidney was involved or the vitamin D function, still having issues 10 months later after last chemo treatment. Yeah, docs, and a lot of times the doctors are not going to tell you about vitamins because they're not trained in them. I mean, the vitamin D correlation, you'll never get that from a traditionally trained doc because they don't know it. It's just not part of their training. Leanne says, is discomfort or pain on the right side below the ribs related to the kidney? Is that its location? And if yes, what could that represent? So you're talking about the right side below the ribs. The right side below the ribs is typically the liver. Now, kidney pain, like from a referral pain pattern perspective, it generally is going to be across the low back. So a lot of times people will manifest pain across the low back. Now, it can wrap around, and in some cases it does, but it's more common for it to stay referred to the back area and less common for it to be here. Generally, if it's your kidneys, it hurts on both sides unless it's just a kidney stone on one side, because generally with systemic problems, you're going to see the pain represent or manifest on both sides, the radiating pain manifest on both sides. Whereas the liver's on the right, and you don't have a liver on the left; it's just on the right. So it's in my opinion, if we're just kind of looking at that question simply, I would ask your doc, potentially to do an ultrasound of your abdomen and see if there's any kind of fatty liver or anything else that's going on. You can also at the same time look at your kidneys while you're being investigated. Let's see here. How do you know if swelling is due to allergies or kidney problems? Questioning, testing, right? If you've got swelling from allergies, generally speaking, we're not going to see abnormal creatinine, blood urea nitrogen, or your GFR dropping below 60. Those are, things that just generally don't tend to happen if you're having an allergy problem, but they do tend to happen if you're having a kidney problem. So, predominantly through testing and additional questions. Let's see. Can kidney damage be reversed if you stop the NSAIDs, antibiotics, gluten, etc.? Yes, it can, JD. It can definitely be reversed. I've seen it be reversed. I've seen people turn around. I've actually, somebody a few months ago that came to see me had late stage kidney failure, and we got her bumped up to stage 2. So she was down to stage 4 kidney failure, which is, very dangerous. Stage 5 is dialysis. Stage 4, you're really close. And we got her, in a very short period of time up to stage 2 with diet change. So again, can you heal? Yes. I've seen it happen in a number of cases, but you've got to commit to the right diet. You've got to commit to healing. And that's where most people really struggle, is they struggle committing to the level that they need to commit to the diet changes. Let's see. So 80 wants to know, am gluten sensitive and B12 deficient? MCV is 103. MCV, for those of you who don't know, is mean corpuscular volume. How can you raise B12 levels fast before it worsens? Best way, I would say 80, my favorite way to raise B12 in people is using a sublingual. I have something called methylcobalamin, and the little tablet, we'll put a link up for you in the feed here, but the tablets, each tablet is about 5,000 micrograms of vitamin B12 in a methylcobalamin form, which is the most bioavailable form of vitamin B12. So it's the form your body utilizes and can work with the easiest. But because it's in a sublingual version, it will absorb into your cheeks. So if you've got a history of gluten-induced gastrointestinal damage, so like where vitamin B12 is absorbed in your intestine is the distal ileum. So the furthest area of your small intestine is where vitamin B12 is absorbed for most people. And if that's been damaged by years of gluten exposure, then going through the cheeks bypasses that GI tract. And so it can be a very, very effective way at getting B12 in you quicker and getting your levels up in a better way. Okay. Cheryl says, my fasting blood glucose is always above 120, but my A1C is around 5 to 5.5. Do I need to be concerned? Yes. I would look at, if your fasting blood sugar is always above 120, why? And so I would maybe, if you don't already have a glucose monitor for home use, I would check it several mornings in a row and then check it several periods throughout the day and see how it's running. And if it's dropping dramatically and it's just elevated because maybe when you have it checked, you've gone to the doctor and you're super stressed because you're in a doctor's office. Remember that stress causes cortisol to dump sugar into your, to have the liver dump sugar or glucose into your bloodstream. So you can get an artificially elevated reading of glucose in the mornings if you're stressed out in the doctor's office. So it may be a fluke of the testing, but if you have a home monitor, you can check it at home where you're not so stressed maybe and see if that same thing is happening. But yeah, I would be very concerned about a consistent level of fasting glucose at 120, even if your hemoglobin A1C is in a normal range. Let's see here. Deborah wants to know, if a person has one kidney only and a GFR 50, what is a safe dosage of vitamin C as well as other supplements? It's a big question, Deborah. I'd say the best answer I could give you is get with a qualified nutritional doc to work a nutritional protocol out for you, or even to determine whether or not you need supplements. You may need a lot less than what you think, and that's where testing can have a huge advantage for you. But it's hard for me to really comment on what is the adequate dose with just that small amount of information. I don't think I would do you a justice or a good service. Jean says, can you please tell me anything to help neuropathy? I have no pain but numbness and tingling. I think I answered a similar question like that just a few minutes ago, so default back to the answer that I shared. Let's see, Betty says, besides limiting glucose, what other diet is best to support kidney function, specifically minimum change disease? What we think was triggered from a shingles vaccine. Boy, yeah. Time. Limiting glucose, potentially, depending on, again, this answer is not universal, Betty, so I hate to generalize. I'm going to generalize with you, but I might not be accurate for you, and that is lower your protein intake. So there are cases where, a lot of times doctors will recommend with kidney function issues, they'll recommend a low protein diet, and that's because the kidneys have to filter the nitrogen and the creatinine. Again, that's that blood urea nitrogen. That's coming from the metabolic breakdown of proteins. And so the more protein you eat in your diet, sometimes the more pressure you can put on the kidneys. I don't generally, for a healthy person, recommend a lower protein diet, but in some cases where you've got a mechanism of kidney damage, even included in something like a vaccine, you might want to spend some time with a lower protein diet, or just taking in lower protein for a time, not necessarily even permanently, just to give your kidneys a break from the filtration. But it's really hard to answer that because there are a lot of other potentials that could go into that equation. Nancy asks, can some oil have gluten? Define what that means for me a little bit more, Nancy. I mean, some oils can be cross-contaminated with gluten, but it depends on where they're manufactured, where they're made, what the manufacturer is also producing. So, I mean, there's the potential there for cross-contamination of gluten. But if you're just buying like an olive oil, for example, an extra virgin cold-pressed olive oil that's organic, it would not be the top of my list of suspicion that it would contain gluten in it or gluten contamination. Let's see, Jody, I have been diagnosed with PKD stage 0, which was accidentally found on a CT scan. What would cause this, and what would you recommend to eradicate or keep these small cysts from growing, affecting my kidney function going forward? Jody, that's too challenging of a question in this type of format. What I would recommend is that you get with a good functional doctor who's worked with PKD before, and get the accurate and adequate testing so that you can get super detailed and super linear on what you need to be doing. Because otherwise it's just a big guess, and that might not be the best service for you. Okay. Let's see. Thank you. Oh, I like hearing that. Thanks for your kind words, Louise. Louise says, thank you for your advice. It's helped my family so much over the years. Removing gluten and taking Creon completely healed my son of severe eczema. Hallelujah. For those of you who don't know what Creon is, it's a pancreatic enzyme. Some people with gluten-induced damage long-term, it damages their pancreas. They can't produce the digestive enzymes the way they otherwise could, and then they're not digesting their food. So their undigested food creates leaky gut in perpetuity, causing systemic-wide inflammation and protein and bacterial leakage into the bloodstream that starts to manifest in the skin as eczema. So, yeah, awesome that you've gotten that help. Let's see, Donna says, can frequent urination be a sign for other things, or is it specific to kidney function? Now, a frequent urinary urgency can be a sign, well, for men, it can be a sign of a prostate enlargement. For women, it can be a sign of a urinary tract infection, which isn't technically major kidney disease. UTIs happen quite frequently for a lot of women. It could be yeast overgrowth, so it could be other things than direct kidney damage. Brenda says, how to share with someone that is not on Facebook at all. Brenda, go over to my YouTube channel. We live stream to that channel as well. It's youtube.com/glutenology, and you can take the link of any of our videos and you can share those links with anyone, and we encourage all of you to do that. If you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, it's one of the best ways to get updates in terms of when I do a live video or when we produce new videos. If you hit that subscribe button on YouTube, and then there's a little bell notification that you hit after you hit subscribe, what that'll allow YouTube to do is send you a reminder anytime we have new video that comes out for you guys to get educated with. Let's see, if someone has a new spinal cord injury or something like a Guillain-Barré, what do you recommend? Yeah, I recommend getting with a doctor as soon as possible and getting a full workup done, because that's not something you want to mess around with. Guillain-Barré can progress and become a very dangerous problem, so you don't want to mess around with that. And it's too broad and big of a question for this format. Okay. We're just about out of time here. Does MS cause insulin resistance? I would say MS doesn't necessarily cause, MS meaning multiple sclerosis, doesn't cause insulin resistance. It's more like, does insulin resistance contribute to MS? It's more kind of think of it in the opposite way. MS is an autoimmune condition where your immune system is creating antibody proteins that are demyelinating your central nervous system. And that is a very, very big problem. And that generally, for most people in my experience, is solved by diet changes and food changes and nutritional changes. So again, being an autoimmune disease, there are 4 primary triggers for autoimmune disease. Food is one of them. Chemical exposures is another. Microbial imbalance and the nutritional deficit is another trigger. So addressing those 4 biochemical triggers with any form of autoimmune disease is often the best first step that anybody can take in order to begin the process of improving their health. Okay. All right, we'll end with a positive note. Lisa says, this info has been so helpful. I've had puffy eyes, but never had other symptoms till this month. Started getting pain in my back at night, and more recently, cannot sleep at night. It all makes sense now. Thank you. You're welcome, Lisa. And make sure in the coming up weeks, as you get that checked out, make sure you let us know how you're doing and let us know what the outcome of that was. Look, folks, I'm out of time. It was wonderful spending Monday evening with you. If you're new to the show and you want more, make sure, again, you subscribe to our YouTube channel, but also come visit me at glutenfreesociety.org. It's our foundation where we talk about how to navigate the gluten-free diet in the right way, not the incorrect way, but in the proper way. And make sure you sign up for our newsletter there. We give you lots of free information on a weekly basis. We send out a newsletter with tons of information to help you navigate diet and lifestyle changes without feeling lost and confused and alone. So we'll see you all next week, same time, 6 p.m. for another episode of Pick Dr. Osborne's Brain. Have a fantastic week. Hey, if you've got a functional medicine or health question that you'd like me to answer for you, make sure you send me an email, glutenology@gmail.com, and we'll do our best to create a video answer just for you. Have a great day.